INEC's problem going into the 2027 elections is not one of logistics, it's one of legitimacy. It lacks legitimacy, it lacks credibility. INEC can go ahead and procure all the BVAS equipment in the world, but if citizens do not understand what happens from the polling unit where they cast their vote to the time election results are announced, INEC will still have a huge credibility problem and a huge lack of trust. The deficit in trust, like I said earlier, has reached a critical and fatal level based on the results of the recent Afrobarometer Continental Survey, which identified that 83% of Nigerians have little or no trust in INEC. And that is the highest lack of trust of an electoral management body in about almost all the countries that we are surveyed. So the simple issue is this: transparency, transparency, transparency.
You talked about lack of trust, loss of trust. 2023 had come and gone. I'm looking at what you have seen between the last election, talking about Ekiti election and movement to the Osun election that could help INEC build back this trust. What have you seen?
If you put it on a scale to say between 2023 to now in 2026, before we get to 2027, yes, it will be right to say that INEC has made some little progress. But putting that side by side to the damage, to the reputational damage it has suffered, from which it is trying to come back, those little gains it has made amount to nothing. They amount to nothing. You have to understand that trust is not won through promises. Trust is not commanded. Trust is something you win by steps, actions, things that you do intentionally, deliberately to win the public trust.
At a crescendo to 2027, what's your view, same question to you, of the electoral process in Nigeria? We know that INEC actually is at the focal point this morning.
The problem ahead of INEC, the challenges that they need to face as we approach 2027 are not those of logistics and things that they had already done. For me, it is the trust deficit is there, but heaping everything on the head of INEC, that's where I differ a little. Because for me, citizens, Nigerians are not, INEC is not working without Nigerians. INEC failures are not without voters' contribution. INEC issues and challenges are not without active participation of politicians. We all generally need a total mind reset about what we want and standing by what we want. You see, the devotion with which we keep our PVC is the devotion we should also ensure we do not go about the election as if it is grabbing the stool. It's about achieving the stool. It's about ascending the throne of our ancestors. There is no political position, no political office that the Constitution guarantees is more than 4 years in the first instance. But if INEC says, let's do it this way, I do not speak for INEC. I speak as somebody who has been spokesperson of the state, who has been editor for more than 25 years before I came to be spokesperson in a state. I am speaking from reports that I've written, reports that I've edited across the country. There is something about the way Nigerian politicians go about elections as if it's an ancestral throne. And so they make INEC job difficult. They go about it as if it's more than 4 years. In fact, there is no political office that is 4 years. And I'm telling you that categorically, it's less than 4 years. They're going to stop really doing much after 3 years and get on the campaign trail and start talking about primaries, and all kinds of things are going to fall through the cracks for the voter, for the Nigerian. Now, so if we want INEC to do well, the people working in INEC are voters somewhere, except those who are on active duty on election day. They won't take their PVC and go and vote. But we cannot continue to wallow in sin and expect grace to abound.
It is a partnership between politicians, political parties, and INEC and Nigerians to have electioneering that works, that seems to work for everyone. What can politicians do differently in order to make sure that the system doesn't get heated up the way it is right now?
The scenario turning out in Osun made me, because I also double as the national vice chairman of the People's Democratic Party. And it shocked me when a sitting senator made that hate speech. However, the problem, going with what Funke said, is a major problem. And that is the citizenry and politicians' orientation. Their orientation is so warped right now that giving 5,000 naira is better for them than they putting in the right person. Secondly, politicians see power now as a birthright. I contested first in 2007 at the age of 38. And I did not bow to any kind of negative thing that will affect my ideology of being in a position where I'm supposed to serve the people. And it has taken me 20 years for me to even get a ticket, a governorship ticket in the People's Democratic Party. One major thing that I have seen is that we have too many political parties. And those political parties now are used as tools. I am not talking even every political party. I'm not talking about maybe APC or PDP or whoever. Politicians in general that run political parties now have 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 political parties that are just invisible members of their own parties. It is time for the Senate and the National Assembly with Mr. President to reduce these political parties to 2 or at most 3. That will bring some kind of sanity to even politicians.
All right, thank you.
Because
so much.
even the moving of politicians from party to party is an aberration.
As a politician, a journalist, a veteran journalist, and the woman on ground who also has spoken for a government, I'd like for you to share your thoughts with regards to how far INEC has gone in the nation and what you have in terms of feelings to what could happen in 2027, beginning from your state, because we have an election holding in your state on Saturday, which will be superintended over by INEC.
If we look at where we're coming from and where we are, we've made progress. It may be slow, it may look invisible because this is the way we are. Nigerians want things done fast. And so I think we have made progress, but we are not where we want to be. INEC can do better. INEC will do better. INEC must do better, because we cannot continue to call our democracy nascent. It is young and we're just starting. No, we're not just starting. A young lady who was born when we started this fresh journey of democracy, some of them already have kids. So we cannot continue to say it's a nascent democracy and we're just starting. We're not just starting. We have started. We're moving slowly. But like I said, we must continue to look at what is holding the wheel. What are those things that are the cogs and the wheels of our progress? We cannot just forget that INEC is not working in a silo. For as long as INEC just wants to talk, speak our big grammar and explain to us what needs to be done. This is the constitution. These are the rules of the land that guide what INEC must do. Who are the people who will take care of those rules? Who are the people who will ensure that when INEC falls out of line, they are brought back to the straight and the narrow? Those people, for as long as their mindset is work, for as long as their mindset is not about progress, we will remain at the same bus stop.
What do you think Nigerians are looking forward to seeing to bring back that trust deficit? Talking about INEC.
We don't need to reinvent the wheel. I had made the point earlier that Samson Itodo, the executive director of IAGA Africa, made a very brilliant publication in the Premium Times recently, where he outlined 7 steps that INEC must take for it to win back public trust. If I were INEC, I will adopt these 7 steps as my transparency agenda, indeed, transparency framework from now to 2027. And I think it will benefit the public if I just go ahead and summarize those 7 steps and read it out for everyone to hear. The first step that was mentioned was 1, publish a clear results transmission protocol. In other words, explain so that the public will understand what happens from the time a voter votes at the polling unit through INEC's back-end, IREF, and all of that to declaration. Number 2, BVAS accreditation should have, the figures for BVAS accreditation should be on IREF. What that simply means is that if, for instance, in a polling unit, you have 10,000 persons accredited, and by the time the elections results are being announced, wherever they are being announced, you now hear 100,000 or 1 million. It becomes apparent, it becomes clear that something wrong has happened. Number 3, publish ward and LGA collation results on IREF. In other words, upload forms EC8B and EC8C so the public can track beyond polling units where changes or cancellations occur. That is very important. Number 4, create a clear reconciliation process. This means that INEC should be able to state clearly what records take priority and how discrepancies between physical EC8A, scanned IREF copies, and electronic transmitted results will be resolved. This is important because these loopholes, these gray areas are the issues that gives our courts the leverage they need to make rulings on technicalities when you don't make things clear and transparent. Number 5, paragraph 40 of INEC's guidelines, remove ambiguities around electronic transmission and require transmission or communication failure to be properly documented. Because we say you should have electronic transmission of results, but if there's a communication failure, you revert back to from ECHA. Who determines there's a communication failure? Is it possible that the communication can be retried? There are so many questions to ask. These loopholes allow for rigging and corruption. Number 6, open election technology to independent scrutiny. What this means is that INEC should allow independent technical audits, penetration tests, stress tests,
All right,
and public
let's
mock exercises of beavers and the result transmission. And the last point he made, because he made 7 points,
yes,
7 steps rather, gazette the regulations and issue a resource management manual. Make the rules legally clear and transparent.